I'm Melissa Wilson, 28, standing frozen at my parents' 35th anniversary dinner. 75 guests fall silent as my father raises his glass. Some kids make you proud. Others just take up space. Everyone laughs while he continues praising my sister Katie's medical school graduation. My mother adds they tried their best with both daughters. I fight back tears, feeling invisible as always. That night changed everything. Nobody's laughing anymore. If you've ever felt like the invisible child in your family, you're not alone. The pain of being overlooked while someone else receives all the praise cuts deeper than most people realize. Before I continue my story, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. Drop your location in the comments and hit subscribe if family drama stories like mine resonate with you. Trust me, what happened after that devastating dinner will show you exactly how karma works in families where favorites are played. The Wilson family looked perfect from the outside. My father Richard built his reputation as one of Boston's most successful corporate attorneys, while my mother Eleanor transformed luxury homes as an interior designer for the city's elite. They created a showplace home in Beacon Hill filled with evidence of their success and my sister Katie's achievements. Katie, 4 years older than me, was the golden child from day one. Her room featured shelves overflowing with trophies, medals, and certificates. Academic awards, debate team victories, tennis championships. My parents converted an entire wall of our living room to display Katie's accomplishments. When guests visited, the tour inevitably included Katie's wall of fame with my father beaming proudly. My own room remained sparsely decorated. Not for lack of achievements. I won several creative writing competitions and had artwork selected for citywide student exhibitions. But these accomplishments were treated as curiosities rather than triumphs. My certificates and ribbons stayed tucked away in desk drawers, never making it to frames or display cases. Writing is a nice hobby, Melissa, my mother would say. But Katie is building a real future. The pattern extended beyond physical displays. When Katie had tennis tournaments, my parents rearranged their schedules without hesitation. They attended every match, cheering enthusiastically from the sidelines. But when my short story won first place in a statewide competition in 7th grade, neither parent attended the ceremony. I accepted my award while scanning the audience, hoping to see them rush in late. They never came. Sorry, honey, my mother said later. Your father had an important client meeting, and I couldn't reschedule Mrs. Abernathy's consultation. Katie's academic achievements received lavish celebrations. When she was accepted to Harvard, my parents threw an elaborate party, inviting extended family and their social circle. When I received straight A's sophomore year, my father glanced at my report card and said, "Good job," before returning to his newspaper. Christmas mornings told the same story. The year Katie turned 16, she unwrapped a MacBook Pro, designer clothes, and concert tickets. I received generic sweaters and gift cards. I pretended not to notice the disparity, forcing a smile while Katie excitedly showed off her new laptop. The pattern of uneven expectations became clearest with household responsibilities. By age 12, I was responsible for daily kitchen cleanup, laundry, and vacuuming. Katie, despite being older, had minimal chores because she needed to focus on her studies. When I asked why the same consideration wasn't extended to me, my mother looked genuinely confused. Katie's course load is much more demanding, Melissa. Medicine is very competitive. My only true ally was my grandmother, my mother's mother, who noticed what was happening. During her visits, she would quietly acknowledge my achievements, sometimes bringing small gifts specifically chosen to encourage my writing. She slipped me a beautiful leather-bound journal for my 13th birthday. "Your voice matters, Melissa," she whispered. "Keep writing your truth." When grandmother died when I was 15, I lost the only person who truly saw me. The funeral remains vivid in my memory, not just for grief over losing her, but because even in mourning, Katie took center stage. She delivered a tearful eulogy while I sat silently, clutching the last birthday card grandmother had given me, which read, "Your light shines bright, even when others don't see it." Without grandmother's validation, I doubled down on proving my worth. I joined every writing competition, edited the school newspaper, and maintained perfect grades. I convinced myself that with enough achievement, enough persistence, my parents would finally see me. If Katie earned their love by excelling in science, I would earn it through writing and academics. I didn't understand then that in families with a golden child, the other children aren't competing on a level playing field. No achievement would ever be enough because the roles had been assigned long ago. Katie was the star, and I was the supporting character. The family dynamics weren't based on our actual accomplishments but on the narrative my parents had created about who we were. By senior year, this realization was beginning to dawn on me, but I wasn't ready to accept it. I still believed I could earn my way into equal standing in my parents' eyes. College would be my fresh start, my chance to finally make them proud. College marked the first significant divergence in how my parents treated Katie and me. Katie attended Harvard Medical School with our parents covering every expense. Tuition, housing, meal plan, textbooks, even a monthly allowance for networking events. Meanwhile, I cobbled together scholarships, student loans, and worked 20 hours weekly at the campus coffee shop and library to attend Northwestern's prestigious journalism program. We'd help if we could, Melissa, my father explained. But medical school is so expensive. You understand. What I understood was that they had fully funded Katie's undergraduate degree too, long before medical school was a consideration. Despite the financial strain, I thrived at Northwestern. Away from my family's shadow, my confidence grew. My professors praised my writing, and I won the department's top award for investigative reporting my junior year. I called my parents immediately after the ceremony. "That's nice, honey," my mother said, her voice distracted. "Did you hear Katie got selected for a special research program? Only 3 students were chosen. We're so proud." Every accomplishment followed the same pattern. My internship at the Chicago Tribune was acknowledged with polite interest before the conversation shifted to Katie's latest achievement. When I landed a coveted position at the Boston Globe after graduation, my father's response was, "That's a good starting point. Keep working hard." The inequity pushed me to prove myself even more. I took every difficult assignment, working nights and weekends. My editors noticed my determination, and my byline began appearing on increasingly prominent stories. When a position opened at a digital media company in New York, my editor recommended me with glowing praise. New York represented freedom. 600 miles from Boston, I built a life independent from my family's expectations. My tiny Brooklyn apartment became my sanctuary, decorated with framed copies of my best articles. As the youngest senior writer in the company's history, I developed a distinct voice covering social issues and human interest stories. My director, Samantha Mitchell, became the mentor I'd always needed. Unlike my parents, she saw potential in me and invested in my growth. When I expressed doubts about a challenging assignment, she looked me straight in the eyes. "You're one of the most talented writers I've ever worked with, Melissa. Trust your voice." Those words, so simple yet so foreign, brought tears to my eyes. Samantha noticed my reaction but didn't comment, instead offering practical guidance for the assignment. Later, after I submitted the piece, she invited me for coffee. "I sense there's a story behind your reaction the other day," she said gently. "You write with such empathy about other people's struggles. It makes me wonder about yours." Over the next hour, I revealed more about my family dynamics than I'd ever shared with anyone. Samantha listened without judgment, then shared wisdom that shifted my perspective. Some parents can't see their children clearly. It's their limitation, not yours. Your worth isn't determined by their ability to recognize it. While my professional confidence grew, I continued seeking my parents' approval. Our Sunday phone calls followed a predictable script. I'd share updates about my work, which they'd acknowledge briefly before launching into detailed accounts of Katie's accomplishments in her medical residency. "Dr. Langston says Katie has the most promising future in cardiology he's seen in 20 years, my mother gushed during one call. I had just told them about breaking a story that was picked up by national news outlets. During my 3rd year in New York, I met Adam Chen at a mutual friend's birthday party. Smart, kind, and genuinely interested in my work, Adam pursued me with consistency and warmth. As our relationship developed, he noticed my anxiety before family calls and my disappointment afterward. "Why do you keep setting yourself up for this?" he asked after one particularly difficult conversation. "They clearly don't appreciate who you are or what you've accomplished." "They're my parents," I responded defensively. "They love me. They just show it differently with Katie and me." Adam's first visit to Boston for Thanksgiving revealed the true extent of the disparity. He watched in stunned silence as my parents fawned over Katie while barely acknowledging my presence. During dinner, when I mentioned a major interview I'd conducted, my father interrupted to ask Katie about her research. Later that night, in our hotel room, Adam couldn't contain his anger. "That was unbelievable. How can you stand it?" "It's always been this way," I said, the practiced excuse sounding hollow even to me. "That doesn't make it right, Melissa. You deserve better." I defended my parents, explaining they were proud in their own way. They just expressed it differently. Adam clearly disagreed but respected my feelings enough not to push further. After returning to New York, I threw myself into work with renewed determination. Each success would eventually force my parents to acknowledge my value. I just needed to achieve enough. By 27, I had established myself as a respected journalist with a growing following. My feature series on overlooked community heroes earned a prestigious industry award. Meanwhile, Katie completed her residency and accepted a position at Massachusetts General Hospital. My parents threw another elaborate celebration in her honor. I attended with Adam, now my fiancé, determined to maintain a positive attitude. The evening proceeded as expected, with Katie at the center of attention and me on the periphery. I told myself it didn't matter. I had Adam, my career, my own life in New York. I didn't need my parents' approval anymore. I almost believed it. Would you still try to win your parents' approval after years of being overlooked? I struggled with this question daily, constantly toggling between hope and resignation. If you've experienced family favoritism, drop a comment about how you handled it. I'm curious if you chose to keep trying or eventually walked away. Meanwhile, let me continue with what happened at that fateful anniversary dinner that changed everything. My parents' 35th anniversary arrived during a particularly successful period in my career. I had just been promoted to features director at the media company, and Adam had proposed 2 months earlier. I viewed the anniversary dinner as an opportunity to repair our strained relationship. Perhaps as adults, with Katie established in her medical career and me in journalism, the old dynamics would finally fade. I spent 3 weeks selecting the perfect anniversary gift. After considerable research, I found a renowned artist who created custom glass sculptures. I commissioned a piece incorporating elements representing their journey together, including subtle nods to both Katie and me. It cost nearly 2 months' salary, but I convinced myself it would be worth it to see genuine appreciation in their eyes. The celebration took place at Le Bernardin, an exclusive French restaurant my father had selected. The private room overflowed with their closest friends, colleagues, and extended family. I arrived early, helping the staff arrange family photos on the display table. I noticed immediately that photos featuring Katie outnumbered those with me 5 to 1. In several family pictures, I had been positioned at the edge, making it easy to crop me out if desired. I pushed aside the familiar ache and focused on making the evening special. When my parents arrived, I greeted them warmly, presenting the carefully wrapped sculpture. My mother smiled politely, handing it to my father without opening it. "We'll save the gifts for later, dear. We need to greet everyone." Katie arrived shortly afterward, immediately drawing my parents' attention. They embraced her enthusiastically, exclaiming over her appearance and introducing her to colleagues. I stood nearby with Adam, watching the familiar scene unfold. "They haven't seen her in what, 2 weeks?" Adam whispered. "They haven't seen you in 6 months." "It's fine," I replied automatically. "Let's find our seats." During dinner, I delivered a heartfelt toast I had spent days preparing, sharing childhood memories and expressing gratitude for the values my parents had instilled. They nodded politely, but I could sense their attention was divided, their eyes scanning the room as I spoke. After the main course, Katie requested everyone's attention. She announced she had been selected for a prestigious fellowship in cardiology at Johns Hopkins. The room erupted in applause as my parents beamed with pride. My father embraced her, eyes glistening with tears I had never seen shed for any of my accomplishments. Then came the moment that would ultimately change everything. My father stood, glass raised, expression solemn as the room quieted in anticipation of his anniversary speech. Eleanor and I have been blessed in many ways throughout our 35 years together, he began, smiling at my mother. Our beautiful home, successful careers, wonderful friends. But no blessing compares to watching your children succeed. He turned toward Katie, his expression softening. Some children make you proud every day. They work hard, achieve greatness, contribute something meaningful to the world. The pause that followed should have warned me what was coming. His eyes shifted briefly in my direction before he continued. And some kids, well, they just take up space. Laughter rippled through the room as my father grinned. My cheeks burned as I realized I was the punchline. Katie laughed loudest of all, raising her glass in acknowledgement of her superior status. We've always said, my mother added, still chuckling, we tried our best with both. More laughter. I sat perfectly still, afraid any movement might release the tears threatening to spill. Adam's hand tightened around mine under the table. To Katie, my father continued, who has exceeded every expectation and made us prouder than we ever imagined possible. Glasses raised around the room. No one seemed to notice I wasn't participating in the toast, or that Adam was glaring openly at my father. I excused myself to the restroom, barely maintaining composure until the door closed behind me. In the privacy of the stall, silent sobs racked my body. Decades of inadequacy crystallized in that single moment of public humiliation. I had always known my place in the family hierarchy, but never had it been stated so explicitly, so publicly. After composing myself, I overheard two of my mother's friends at the sinks. Richard's toast was a bit harsh, don't you think? One whispered. Well, you know how it is. Katie's always been their star. Melissa tries, but she's just not in the same league. Writing little stories online versus saving lives? No comparison. Still, to say it so openly at such a public event. The truth hurts sometimes. I remained hidden until they left, their casual dismissal of my career and acceptance of my father's cruelty cutting deeply. When I returned to the table, Adam was missing. I spotted him across the room in what appeared to be an intense conversation with my father. Adam's posture was rigid, his expression uncharacteristically confrontational. My father's face had reddened, his forced smile failing to mask his annoyance. My stomach dropped as I realized Adam was defending me. I rushed over just as my father said, with all due respect, this is a family matter. Melissa understands our dynamic. Your dynamic is emotional abuse, Adam replied, his voice low but firm. And if Melissa has accepted it, that's only because you've conditioned her to believe she deserves nothing better. Adam, please, I intervened, mortified at the scene unfolding at my parents' celebration. Let's just go. In the car, Adam's anger boiled over. I can't believe you're still defending them. Did you hear what your father said? In front of everyone? It was just a bad joke, I said weakly, though I didn't believe it. It wasn't a joke, Melissa. It was cruel and deliberate. And the fact that you're making excuses shows how deeply they've warped your sense of normal family behavior. We drove intense silence. I expected my phone to ring with an apology call from my parents, but it remained silent. The next morning, I received a text from Katie instead. Way to overreact and ruin Mom and Dad's anniversary. Adam was completely out of line. You should apologize to Dad. I stared at the message in disbelief. Somehow, I had become the villain for being hurt by public humiliation. Adam found me crying on the couch, Katie's text displayed on my phone. This is gaslighting, Melissa, he said gently. They hurt you, then blame you for being hurt. It's a classic abuse tactic. They're not abusive, I protested automatically. They just favor Katie. Lots of parents have favorites. Favoritism is preferring one child's personality or having more in common with them. This is systematic emotional neglect and public humiliation. There's a difference. For the first time, I couldn't summon the energy to defend my parents. The wall I'd built to protect myself from the truth began to crumble. What if Adam was right? What if this wasn't normal family behavior but something more insidious? What if I wasn't deficient but had been set up to fail from the beginning? That night, I experienced the most profound emotional breakdown of my life. Years of suppressed hurt erupted as Adam held me through hours of sobbing. Between tears, I shared painful childhood memories I'd buried, instances of favoritism so blatant that speaking them aloud made their cruelty undeniable. I've spent my entire life trying to earn love that was given freely to Katie, I finally admitted. Nothing I accomplish will ever be enough because the problem isn't my achievement. It's that they decided long ago which daughter was worth loving. Then it's their loss, Adam said firmly. Because you're extraordinary, Melissa. Anyone who can't see that doesn't deserve a place in your life. Even if they're your parents. The week after the anniversary dinner, I called a therapist. Dr. Sarah Bennett specialized in family trauma and adult children of narcissists. During our first session, I recounted the dinner incident, still minimizing my parents' behavior and blaming myself for overreacting. What you're describing sounds like a classic golden child/scapegoat dynamic, Dr. Bennett explained. It's a common pattern in families with narcissistic parents. Over the next months, therapy became my lifeline. Dr. Bennett helped me identify patterns I'd never recognized. How my mother used emotional withdrawal when I failed to meet her expectations. How my father positioned Katie and me as competitors rather than sisters. How my achievements were either ignored or reframed as somehow selfish or attention-seeking. Your family system required you to play a specific role, she explained. When you excel, you're threatening the established narrative. I immersed myself in books about family dysfunction. Terms like narcissistic family system, emotional neglect, and parentification illuminated my experiences. I recognized how I'd been assigned adult responsibilities while Katie remained carefree, how I'd become my own parent while simultaneously trying to earn parental love that was consistently withheld. Most significantly, Dr. Bennett helped me understand a painful truth: no achievement would ever make my parents value me equally. Their treatment wasn't a reflection of my worth but of their own limitations. The hardest part of healing, she told me during a particularly difficult session, is accepting that the loving, affirming parent-child relationship you deserve might never be possible with your actual parents. While processing these realizations, my personal life took a positive turn. Adam proposed during a weekend trip to the Berkshires, presenting a vintage emerald ring that had belonged to his grandmother. You deserve to be chosen, Melissa, he said. Every day, in every way. I choose you, your dreams, your happiness. I choose us. Wedding planning immediately highlighted the ongoing family issues. My mother showed minimal interest, participating in obligatory dress shopping but constantly checking her phone. When I selected a date, she complained it conflicted with a conference Katie might attend. Maybe you could consider postponing, she suggested. Katie's schedule is so demanding. For the first time, I didn't accommodate. The date stands, Mom. Katie can make it work if it's important to her. My mother's surprise at my boundary setting was evident, but I held firm. Meanwhile, my career entered an exciting phase. Samantha called me into her office with unexpected news. The company was developing a new documentary series for their streaming platform and wanted me to develop and host it. Your writing connects with people, Melissa, Samantha explained. You have a gift for uncovering the human element in complex stories. We want to translate that to video. The opportunity terrified and excited me. I had never considered on-camera work, always preferring to remain behind my byline. But the concept resonated deeply, a series titled Hidden Stories, focusing on overlooked people and perspectives. Think about it, Samantha encouraged. This could be transformative for your career. I threw myself into the project, researching, writing, and learning the fundamentals of video production. The work provided welcome distraction from family tensions and wedding planning. Working 16-hour days, I developed episode concepts, interview strategies, and a visual approach for the series. The pilot episode featured a janitor who had secretly funded college scholarships for dozens of students over 20 years. His story of quiet impact without recognition resonated with viewers immediately. The second episode profiled an elderly woman who had fostered over 100 children but remained unknown outside her community. By the third episode, focusing on overlooked scientific contributors, the series had gone viral. Suddenly, I was receiving interview requests and speaking invitations. The invisible girl had become visible in ways I never anticipated. Comments poured in from viewers who felt seen through the stories I highlighted. As the series gained momentum, my parents finally took notice of my career. My mother called unexpectedly one evening. "Mrs. Abernathy mentioned seeing you on her streaming service," she said, sounding surprised. She was quite impressed. "Will you be doing more of these little videos?" The dismissive phrasing stung, but I recognized something new in her voice, interest, perhaps even a hint of respect. "It's a major documentary series, Mom. We've been greenlit for a full season." "Well, that's nice, dear. Your father and I might watch one when we have time." While planning the second half of the season, I realized something had shifted internally. For the first time in my life, I wasn't creating with my parents' approval in mind. The series resonated with me and with viewers. Their validation mattered more than the approval I'd never received from my family. I've been sharing my journey from invisible child to finding my voice, and I know many of you have walked similar paths. The hardest lesson was realizing that sometimes the validation we seek from family will never come. Have you experienced that turning point where you stopped seeking approval from those who couldn't give it? Share your story in the comments if you feel comfortable. Your experiences might help others still struggling with family dynamics that diminish their worth. Now, let me tell you about the project that changed everything. 6 months into Hidden Stories, I approached Samantha with a concept that had been forming since therapy began. The idea terrified me, but it wouldn't let go. "I want to create a documentary series about family favoritism," I explained. "The long-term effects of growing up as the less favored child." Samantha studied me carefully. "This is personal for you." "Yes. But it's also universal. The research shows it's incredibly common but rarely discussed openly. There's significant psychological impact that continues into adulthood." We spent hours discussing the concept, potential structure, and approach. By the end of our conversation, Samantha was convinced. "This could be powerful, Melissa. But are you prepared for how personal it might become? For your family's reaction?" "I think I need to do this," I admitted. "Not just professionally but personally. These stories deserve to be told." 2 weeks later, I presented the concept to network executives. The series, titled The Invisible Child, Family Favoritism and Its Aftermath, would examine the psychology behind parental favoritism, share stories from adults who experienced it, and explore paths to healing. The presentation included statistics, expert testimonials, and a compelling sizzle reel. When I finished speaking, the room remained silent for several seconds. Then the head of programming leaned forward. "This is exactly the kind of substantive, emotionally resonant content we need." Green light, with an expanded budget for production quality and marketing. The next months passed in a whirlwind of activity. I interviewed leading psychologists specializing in family dynamics. Dr. Jennifer Morrison from Harvard explained how parental favoritism impacts children's development. The unfavored child often develops hypervigilance, perfectionism, and profound insecurity, she explained. They're constantly scanning their environment for approval, trying to earn what should be freely given. Dr. Michael Preston from Columbia discussed the biological impacts. We see higher cortisol levels, increased anxiety disorders, and even compromised immune function in adults who experience childhood favoritism. The body remembers what the mind tries to rationalize away. Most powerful were the interviews with other adult invisible children. Jessica, a successful architect, described setting her alarm for 5 a.m. throughout high school to earn perfect grades while her brother coasted on charm and athletic ability. Thomas, a teacher, recalled his parents attending every one of his sister's dance recitals while missing his academic competitions. Alicia, now a therapist herself, shared how she internalized the message that her emotions didn't matter while her brother's needs always took priority. Each story echoed elements of my own experience, creating a tapestry of shared trauma and resilience. I remained behind the camera for these interviews, but their impact on me was profound. These successful, accomplished adults still carried the wounds of childhood favoritism. Yet they had built meaningful lives despite it. Their resilience inspired me. The series gained momentum even before release, with early press coverage generating significant interest. A major women's magazine requested an interview about the project. During our conversation, the reporter asked a question I hadn't anticipated. How much of your own experience influenced this series? I hesitated before answering truthfully. Significantly. I grew up as the less favored child in my family. That experience informs every aspect of this project. The article, titled Turning Pain into Purpose, Melissa Wilson Breaks Silence on Family Favoritism, was published 3 weeks before the series premiere. It included details about my childhood and career, positioning the documentary as both journalistic investigation and personal reckoning. The day after publication, my phone rang with my father's number. I answered with trepidation. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" he demanded without preamble. "I'm creating a documentary about an important psychological issue," I replied, struggling to maintain composure. "You're airing family business for attention. Your mother is devastated. Is this how you repay everything we've done for you?" The familiar guilt rose automatically, but therapy had given me tools to recognize the manipulation. "I haven't named you or shared specific family stories publicly," I countered. "But this topic matters, and my experience with it informs my work. I'm sorry if that makes you uncomfortable. You need to shut this down immediately," he insisted. "Or we're done." "That's your choice," I replied, surprising myself with my steadiness. "But the series will proceed." He hung up without responding. Minutes later, Katie called, her voice tight with anger. "How could you do this to Mom and Dad? They gave you everything." "They gave you everything," I corrected quietly. "That's kind of the point. You're just jealous of my success," she snapped. "So you're creating this victim narrative for attention. It's pathetic, Melissa." Despite the pain of these confrontations, I remained committed to the project. The series wasn't about exposing my parents but illuminating a widespread issue that left many adults struggling with self-worth and relationship difficulties. 2 days before the premiere, my mother called unexpectedly. Her voice lacked its usual crisp efficiency. "Your father's furious," she began. But I watched the preview clip online. I braced for criticism but remained silent. "It made me uncomfortable," she continued. But I recognized some of what those people described from my own childhood. My brother was always my parents' favorite. This admission stunned me. My mother had never shared anything vulnerable about her childhood. "I never wanted to make you feel like I felt growing up," she said softly. "I didn't realize." Her voice trailed off, unable to complete the acknowledgement. The conversation ended awkwardly, without resolution but with the first crack in her perfect facade. The series premiered to critical acclaim. Viewers flooded social media with their own stories, creating community around a previously taboo topic. The feedback affirmed what I'd suspected: family favoritism was incredibly common yet rarely discussed openly. By naming it, the series created space for healing. As the final episodes were releasing, I received notice of a prestigious industry award nomination. The series had been recognized for outstanding reporting on psychological and social issues. During the ceremony, surrounded by respected colleagues instead of judgmental family, I accepted the award with a brief speech. To everyone who has felt invisible within their own family, you matter. Your experience matters. And you are not alone. The professional success exceeded all expectations, but the personal fallout was significant. My parents remained distant and defensive. Extended family members chose sides, some supporting my work while others condemned me for betraying my parents. The divisions revealed how deeply the family system depended on maintaining the established narrative. Through it all, Adam remained my steadfast supporter, celebrating my success without minimizing the personal cost. My in-laws welcomed me with genuine warmth, demonstrating what family support could look like. "We're so proud of you," my future mother-in-law said after watching the series. "Not just for your success, but for your courage in addressing something so painful." Their unconditional acceptance highlighted what had been missing throughout my childhood. For the first time, I felt truly seen and valued simply for being myself. The series finale aired on a Tuesday evening, becoming an immediate cultural touchpoint. By Wednesday morning, I had received interview requests from major talk shows, podcast hosts, and print publications. The topic had struck a nerve in the national conversation, with thousands sharing their own experiences on social media using #TheInvisibleChild hashtag. While preparing for a morning show appearance, I received a text from my cousin Bethany. "Your parents watched the finale last night. Everyone's talking about it." I hadn't spoken to my parents since our tense phone conversation weeks earlier. The thought of them watching the series produced a complex mixture of anxiety and vindication. The final episode had focused on healing and boundary setting, featuring stories of adults who had created fulfilling lives despite childhood favoritism. Nothing in it directly referenced my family, yet the parallels would be unmistakable to anyone who knew our dynamics. After my television appearance, more messages arrived from extended family members. An aunt who had always been kind but distant wrote, "I've watched your sister be praised while you were overlooked for years. I should have said something. I'm sorry, Melissa." My father's brother, Uncle James, called that evening. "Your grandfather did the same to your father," he said without preamble. "Favored me openly. I never realized your father was repeating the pattern with you and Katie." These revelations shifted my understanding of our family history. The pattern hadn't begun with me but had been passed through generations, each unfavored child unconsciously recreating their own painful experience with the next generation. 3 days after the finale aired, Katie called. Her typically confident voice sounded subdued. "Can we meet? Just the two of us?" We arranged to meet at a quiet cafe near her apartment in Boston. I flew in from New York, unsure what to expect. When Katie arrived, her usual polished appearance seemed slightly disheveled, her eyes tired. "I watched your series," she began after ordering coffee. "All of it?" I nodded, waiting. It was uncomfortable. I didn't want to recognize our family in those stories. She twisted her napkin nervously. But I did. And I recognized myself as the favored child. This admission, so simple yet so profound, brought unexpected tears to my eyes. "I always knew Mom and Dad treated us differently," she continued. "But I told myself it was because I worked harder, achieved more. Your series made me realize that wasn't true. You worked incredibly hard. They just didn't value what you did." "It wasn't your fault," I said, surprised to find I meant it. "You were a child too." But as we got older, I participated in it. I accepted their narrative that I was somehow better, more deserving. I enjoyed the benefits without questioning the cost to you. She met my eyes directly. "I'm sorry, Melissa." Over the next 2 hours, Katie shared her perspective on our childhood. She described the immense pressure that came with being the golden child. The constant fear of disappointing our parents. The crushing anxiety when she considered any path other than the one they'd chosen for her. "Being the favorite isn't actually freedom," she explained. "It's a different kind of cage. I've never made a single major life decision based on what I wanted, only on what would please them. For the first time, I saw Katie not as my privileged tormentor but as another victim of our parents' dysfunctional system. Her cage had prettier bars, but it was a cage nonetheless. "Do you even want to be a cardiologist?" I asked suddenly. Katie's eyes widened, then filled with tears. "I don't know," she whispered. I've never allowed myself to consider any alternative. As our conversation continued, we began tentatively rebuilding a relationship based on authentic connection rather than competition. We shared memories from different perspectives, sometimes laughing, sometimes crying at how differently we had experienced the same events. By the time we parted, something had shifted between us. Not forgiveness exactly, but understanding. A foundation for something new. The following week, my parents requested a family meeting. Katie called to inform me. They want to discuss everything that's happened. All of us together. "I don't know if I'm ready for that," I admitted. "I'll be there," Katie promised. "It won't be like before." After consulting with Dr. Bennett, I agreed to the meeting with specific conditions. It would take place in a neutral location with a professional mediator present. Adam would accompany me for support. And I would leave immediately if the conversation became manipulative or abusive. We gathered in a conference room at a hotel midway between Boston and New York. My parents had arranged for a family therapist, Dr. Marshall, to facilitate. Katie sat between our parents and me, symbolically bridging the divide. Adam remained close beside me, his presence grounding. The first hour was predictably difficult. My father alternated between defensive justifications and attempts to dismiss the severity of the favoritism. My mother cried frequently, positioning herself as a victim of misunderstanding. Katie remained mostly silent, watching the familiar dynamics play out. "Melissa has always been oversensitive," my father insisted. "We provided everything she needed." Material needs, yes, I acknowledged. But emotional support? Recognition? A sense of intrinsic value? Those were reserved for Katie. Dr. Marshall guided the conversation skillfully, preventing my father's attempts to dominate and my mother's emotional deflections. Gradually, as the well-rehearsed scripts failed, something unexpected emerged. During a particularly tense exchange about my 16th birthday, when my parents had cancelled my celebration for Katie's tennis tournament, my father suddenly stopped mid-sentence. His face crumpled, decades of rigid control giving way to raw emotion. "My father did the same to me," he admitted, voice breaking. "My birthday, my graduation, everything was secondary to James's achievements. I swore I'd never do that to my children." The revelation hung in the air. My mother reached for his hand, her own defenses finally lowering. "I saw myself in Katie," she confessed quietly. "And Richard in you, Melissa. Your creativity, your sensitivity." I was jealous because my parents dismissed those same qualities in me. It was easier to focus on Katie than face what your talents stirred up in me. These admissions didn't instantly heal decades of hurt, but they created space for honest conversation. For the first time, my parents acknowledged the reality of their favoritism rather than denying or justifying it. They recognized, however painfully, that their treatment had caused genuine harm. "What do you need from us now?" my father asked eventually, the question itself representing significant growth. "I need you to understand that trust has been broken," I replied carefully. "Rebuilding it will take time and consistent effort. I need you to respect my boundaries and recognize that our relationship will need to be different going forward." "Different how?" my mother asked, anxiety evident in her voice. "More limited, more conditional on how you treat me. I won't accept dismissal or cruelty anymore, even in the guise of humor. I deserve basic respect, even if you don't understand or value my choices." My parents nodded solemnly. Whether they could actually implement these changes remained to be seen, but the acknowledgement itself represented progress. As the session concluded, Dr. Marshall suggested regular family therapy if we wished to continue healing the relationship. My parents agreed tentatively, though I remained cautiously realistic about the potential for fundamental change. Outside the hotel, Katie hugged me tightly. That was the most honest conversation our family has ever had, she observed. It's a start, I agreed. But only that. On the train back to New York, Adam asked how I was feeling. Exhausted. Sad. Hopeful. Skeptical. I leaned against his shoulder. All of the above. That seems appropriate, he said, kissing the top of my head. This is a marathon, not a sprint. The analogy felt right. We had begun a journey with no guaranteed outcome. The patterns established over decades wouldn't transform overnight. But for the first time, all parties acknowledged the reality of what had happened. It was a foundation, however fragile, for whatever might come next. 3 months after our initial family meeting, my parents suggested we continue the conversation with Dr. Marshall. The intervening period had been one of cautious distance. We exchanged occasional texts, had one brief phone call on my birthday, but maintained the boundaries I had established. Adam and I arrived at Dr. Marshall's office in Cambridge on a crisp autumn morning. The office felt more intimate than the hotel conference room, with comfortable seating arranged in a circle. My parents and Katie were already present, making small talk with Dr. Marshall. Before we begin, Dr. Marshall explained once we were settled, I want to establish ground rules. Each person will have uninterrupted time to speak. We'll focus on specific behaviors rather than character judgments. And everyone commits to listening without defensiveness, even when it's difficult. My father shifted uncomfortably but nodded along with everyone else. Melissa, Dr. Marshall continued, would you be willing to start by sharing specific memories that illustrate the family dynamic from your perspective? I had prepared for this, selecting examples that clearly demonstrated the pattern without devolving into a litany of complaints. I described my high school graduation, where my parents had hosted a small family dinner despite my status as valedictorian, compared to Katie's elaborate graduation party. I recounted Christmases where the disparity in gifts was obvious to everyone present. I detailed the countless times my achievements were acknowledged briefly before conversation immediately shifted to Katie's activities. Throughout my account, I maintained a calm, factual tone, focusing on specific incidents and their impact rather than attacking my parents' character. Dr. Marshall occasionally asked clarifying questions but otherwise allowed me to speak uninterrupted. When I finished, my father immediately began to respond, but Dr. Marshall gently redirected him. Before anyone responds, I'd like to ask Katie to share her perspective on these same events or similar patterns she observed. Katie straightened in her seat, clearly uncomfortable with her role. Many of Melissa's memories match mine, she began hesitantly. The difference is that I benefited from the imbalance while she suffered from it. She described watching our parents cancel plans with me to attend her events, noticing their dismissal of my achievements while celebrating hers effusively. I knew it was happening, she admitted. By high school, it was impossible to miss. But I didn't say anything because I liked being the special one. My mother's expression crumpled at this confirmation from her favored daughter. My father's jaw tightened, his discomfort with this united front evident. I want to add something important, Katie continued. Being the golden child came with its own damage. I developed crippling perfectionism because I couldn't risk disappointing you. I chose a career path to please you rather than explore my own interests. I've struggled with genuine friendships because I learned to perform for approval rather than connect authentically. This perspective silenced my parents completely. They had clearly never considered how their favoritism might have harmed Katie as well. When Dr. Marshall invited my parents to respond, my mother spoke first, her voice uncharacteristically subdued. I never intended to hurt either of you, she began, an opening I had heard many times before. But then she continued differently, but intentions don't matter as much as impact. And clearly, the impact was harmful to both of you in different ways. She described her own childhood, providing context I had never fully understood. Her father had openly preferred her brother, dismissing her artistic interests and academic achievements. I internalized the message that being female made me less valuable, she explained. When I had daughters, I unconsciously recreated that dynamic, identifying with Katie's conventional achievements while dismissing Melissa's creative pursuits, just as my father had dismissed mine. This acknowledgement of the generational pattern struck me deeply. Not as an excuse but as an explanation that helped me understand her behavior without absolving her of responsibility. My father remained defensive longer, insisting he had provided equally for both daughters materially. But as the session progressed, Katie's confirmation of my experiences made his denials increasingly untenable. "I saw myself in Katie," he finally admitted, echoing my mother's earlier insight. "She approached life systematically, logically, like me. Your creativity, your emotional sensitivity, Melissa, those qualities reminded me of my brother, whom my father favored. I think I was trying to prove I was right to be the way I am by validating those same qualities in Katie and dismissing them in you." The room fell silent as this admission settled. The psychological complexity of my father seeing his childhood rival in me, unconsciously punishing me for qualities that had brought him pain, was profound. "And the toast?" Dr. Marshall prompted gently. "At the anniversary dinner?" My father's face flushed with what appeared to be genuine shame. "It was cruel and inexcusable," he acknowledged. "I was showing off, playing to the crowd. Using Melissa as the punchline felt familiar, comfortable. I didn't consider how deeply it would hurt her." "It wasn't just hurtful," I responded, finding my voice. "It was humiliating. You made my pain a public spectacle, inviting everyone to laugh at the family joke, that I'm worth less than Katie." For the first time in my memory, my father's eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry, Melissa. Truly sorry." The apology hung in the air, both monumental and insufficient. Decades of emotional neglect couldn't be erased with a single acknowledgement, no matter how sincere. "What now?" my mother asked, looking between Katie and me. "How do we move forward from here?" Dr. Marshall guided us through a discussion of concrete changes and boundaries. My parents would continue their own therapy to address the underlying issues that had led to their behavior. Our contact would remain limited while we established new patterns of interaction. Any return to old behaviors would result in immediate consequences, including my leaving the conversation. "Trust has been severely damaged," Dr. Marshall explained. "Rebuilding it requires consistency over time. There will be setbacks and mistakes. The question is whether everyone is committed to the ongoing work of creating healthier relationships." My parents expressed commitment, though I remained realistically cautious. People can sincerely want to change while still falling back into established patterns under stress. As our session concluded, my father asked hesitantly, "Is there anything we can do in the immediate term? To begin making amends?" I considered the question seriously. "You can respect the boundaries I've set. You can acknowledge Katie and me equally when we're together. You can show interest in my work without comparing it to Katie's. And you can give me time and space to heal without pressuring me to forgive before I'm ready." He nodded soberly. "That seems fair." Outside the office, Katie pulled me aside. "I meant what I said in there. Being the golden child damaged me too. I'm in therapy now, sorting through what I actually want versus what I was programmed to want." "What have you discovered so far?" I asked. She smiled wryly. "That I might have gone to medical school regardless, but I'd rather be in research than clinical practice. And that I've been hiding parts of myself, doubts, mistakes, unconventional interests. Because they didn't fit the perfect daughter narrative." Before parting, we made plans for dinner the following month, just the two of us. The relationship remained complicated but was evolving into something potentially healthier for both of us. Adam and I walked through Boston Common afterward, processing the intense session. "How are you feeling?" he asked. "Like we've opened Pandora's box," I replied honestly. "There's no going back to the comfortable denial everyone was living in before. It's terrifying and liberating at the same time." "Do you think they can actually change? Especially your father?" I considered the question carefully. "I think they can improve. Whether they can transform completely at their age, after decades of these patterns? I'm not sure. But I'm no longer measuring my worth by their ability to see it." That evening, as Adam and I prepared to return to New York, I received a text from my father. "I'm proud of you, Melissa. Not because of your success, though that's impressive, but because of your courage in speaking your truth today. I should have said this years ago." The message brought unexpected tears. Not because it healed everything, it couldn't, but because it represented a first step, however small, toward the parent-child relationship I had always craved. Have you experienced a family confrontation that changed everything? The journey from invisible child to finding my voice wasn't easy, but facing these painful truths ultimately brought healing I never thought possible. If my story has resonated with you, please hit subscribe to hear more real-life family stories. Drop a comment sharing your own experience with family dynamics, and don't forget to like and share this video if it touched something in you. Thank you for witnessing my journey. I'm grateful for this community where invisible children can finally be seen. 1 year after the documentary series premiere, I stood backstage at the National Media Awards, clutching Adam's hand nervously. The Invisible Child had been nominated for Outstanding Documentary Series, recognition that still felt surreal. "You deserve this," Adam whispered, straightening my necklace. "Regardless of who wins tonight." The auditorium hummed with industry professionals. As I scanned the audience from behind the curtain, I spotted something unexpected: my parents seated in the 10th row, Katie beside them. I had sent invitations without expecting them to attend. When my category was announced, the nominated series appeared on the large screens. The audience applauded politely for each, with notably enthusiastic response for my series. Then the presenter opened the envelope. "And the award goes to Melissa Wilson for The Invisible Child, Family Favoritism and Its Aftermath." The room erupted in applause as I made my way to the stage, still processing the reality of the moment. Under the bright lights, I could barely make out the audience, but I knew my family was watching. "Thank you for this incredible honor," I began, my voice steadier than I felt. "This series began as a personal journey but became something much larger. The response has shown how many people carry the invisible wounds of childhood favoritism into adulthood." I acknowledged my production team, Samantha's mentorship, and Adam's unwavering support. Then I addressed what few in the audience would understand. "I also want to acknowledge the journey from invisibility to voice. For anyone who has felt overlooked, diminished, or erased within their own family, your experience matters. Your perspective is valid. And you deserve to be seen." I didn't name my parents or directly reference my personal story, but I knew they would recognize themselves in my words. "This award belongs to every invisible child who found the courage to speak their truth and break the silence around family favoritism. Thank you for trusting me with your stories." At the reception afterward, my parents approached awkwardly. My mother embraced me first. "Your speech was beautiful," she said, genuine emotion in her voice. "And deserved." My father stood slightly back, still uncomfortable with public displays of emotion. "Congratulations, Melissa. We're proud of you." The words I had longed to hear throughout my childhood now came with complicated feelings. Appreciation for the effort, skepticism about its depth, sadness for all the years those words had been withheld. "Thank you for coming," I replied simply. "It means a lot that you're here." Katie hugged me warmly. "Told you I'd get them here," she whispered. "Dad watched the entire series twice. He won't admit it, but I caught him taking notes during the episode on generational patterns." This unexpected image, my rigid father studying the psychological concepts in my documentary, made me smile despite myself. The past year had brought significant changes to our family dynamics. My parents had continued therapy, both individually and as a couple. Our contact remained limited but had improved in quality. My mother had begun sharing more about her own childhood, creating connection through our shared experiences of feeling overlooked. My father struggled more with vulnerability but made efforts to show interest in my work without comparing it to Katie's. Katie and I had developed a genuine friendship as adults, meeting monthly for dinner or video calls. She had transferred to a research position at Johns Hopkins, finally making a career decision based on her own preferences rather than our parents' expectations. She was dating someone new, a musician our parents would have considered inappropriate for their golden child. He makes me laugh, she had told me simply. And he doesn't care about my credentials. My own life had evolved significantly as well. Adam and I had married in a small ceremony 6 months earlier, surrounded by chosen family rather than obligatory relatives. My documentary series had spawned a book deal and speaking engagements. And most recently, we had begun discussing starting a family of our own. Do you think we'll repeat the patterns? I had asked Adam late one night, voicing my deepest fear. What if I unconsciously favor one child over another? The fact that you're asking the question makes all the difference, he had replied. You're aware of the pattern. That's the first step in breaking it. 2 weeks after the awards ceremony, my parents invited Adam and me to dinner at their home. I approached the evening with cautious optimism. Their home had once been the setting for so much pain, returning now, with new boundaries and evolving relationships, felt significant. As we entered the living room, I noticed immediately that something had changed. The wall formerly dedicated exclusively to Katie's achievements now featured my awards and framed articles alongside hers. Not as an afterthought but given equal prominence. My mother followed my gaze. We should have done that years ago, she said quietly. During dinner, my father seemed unusually contemplative. As dessert was served, he cleared his throat. I've been thinking about that toast, he said abruptly. Everyone at the table knew immediately which toast he meant. At our anniversary dinner. My stomach tightened automatically at the memory. It was cruel, he continued. And it reflected something deeply wrong in how I've approached fatherhood. I've been doing a lot of thinking about why I treated my daughters so differently. He described insights from his therapy. How his own father's favoritism had created a template he unconsciously followed, how he had projected his insecurities onto me, how he had used Katie's achievements to validate his parenting while blaming me for normal childhood struggles. I can't undo the past, he concluded. But I want you both to know I see the damage I caused. To both of you, in different ways. He looked at me directly. Especially to you, Melissa. And I'm truly sorry. The apology wasn't perfect. It didn't erase decades of hurt or magically heal old wounds. But it was sincere, specific, and unprompted, qualities that made it significantly more meaningful than previous attempts. Thank you, I replied simply, accepting the apology without promising instant forgiveness. Later that evening, as Adam and I prepared to leave, my father approached me privately. That documentary series, he said awkwardly. It's exceptional work. Not because it won awards, though those are well-deserved. But because it's helping people understand something important. I wish I'd understood it sooner. For a moment, I glimpsed the father I had always wanted, one who could see my value and express genuine pride in my accomplishments. The moment didn't erase the past, but it offered a glimpse of what might still be possible. As Adam and I drove back to our hotel, I reflected on the journey from invisible child to woman fully seen. The path hadn't been linear or simple. Healing family wounds never is. But I had found my voice, built a meaningful career amplifying overlooked stories, created healthy boundaries with my parents, and developed an authentic relationship with my sister. Most importantly, I had broken free from the desperate need for parental validation that had driven so much of my early life. My worth no longer depended on their ability to recognize it. That freedom, to exist confidently in my own value regardless of others' assessment, was perhaps the most significant achievement of all. The following morning, I woke to a text from Katie, breakfast before you head back to New York. Over coffee and omelets, we discussed the previous evening. Dad's really trying, she observed. It's awkward and imperfect, but it's genuine. I know, I acknowledged. I'm still cautious, but I see the effort. Where do you think we go from here? She asked. As a family? I considered the question carefully. Forward, I hope. With realistic expectations and firm boundaries. I don't think we'll ever have the ideal family from a Hallmark movie, but maybe we can build something authentic based on who we actually are rather than who we pretended to be. Katie nodded thoughtfully. I'd like that. As I prepared to board the train back to New York, my phone pinged with a notification. A new comment on the most recent episode of my documentary series read, "Thank you for giving words to something I've felt my entire life but could never explain. For the first time, I don't feel crazy or ungrateful for recognizing the favoritism in my family. Your courage in telling this story has changed lives." Messages like this arrived daily, each one confirming that breaking the silence around family favoritism had created space for others to begin their own healing journeys. The invisible children were finding their voices, one story at a time. Back in New York, settling into our apartment with Adam, I felt a sense of peace that had once seemed impossible. The journey wasn't over. Healing rarely has a definitive endpoint, but I had traveled far from the young woman who stood frozen at her parents' anniversary dinner, absorbing public humiliation with practiced stoicism. That night, contemplating the future, I made a silent promise to myself and to the child I had once been: your voice matters. Your experience matters. And you are worthy of love, not despite your differences but because of them. The vow extended to any children Adam and I might have, a commitment to seeing each one clearly and valuing them fully, without comparison or condition. The path from invisible child to woman fully seen had been painful but necessary. In finding my voice, I had created space for others to find theirs. In telling my story, I had connected with a community of fellow travelers on the healing journey. And in confronting family patterns with courage and compassion, I had helped begin the process of breaking chains that had bound generations before me. That, perhaps, was the most meaningful achievement of all. Thank you for joining me on this journey from invisible child to finding my voice. If my story has touched something in you, please consider sharing it with someone who might need to hear they're not alone. Has your family experience shaped who you've become, for better or worse? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe for more authentic family stories, and hit that like button if this resonated with you. Remember, healing from family wounds is possible, even when the path seems impossible. I'm living proof, and I'm grateful to each of you for being part of this supportive community where we can finally be seen. Until next time, hold on to your truth, it's more powerful than you know.